Welcome to the synagogue of Rabbi Yosef Karo. Rabbi Yosef Karo was definitely one of the most interesting figures in Tzfat, and I'm very happy to invite you all in to come and see his synagogue. From the hustle bustle of the busy street filled with beautiful art, we take a break a little bit in this very simple yet beautiful synagogue. Look around. The whole synagogue is filled with ancient books. And like a Sephardi synagogue, you have people sitting facing each other. This was a small synagogue, wasn't one of the big ones, but this was the synagogue where Rabbi Yosef Karo worked, where he prayed, where his community gathered. And I would like to tell you a little bit about him, because he is one of the most interesting characters who walked the streets of Tzfat in the 16th century. He was born in 1488 in Toledo, in Spain. When he was only 3 years old, the Jews were expelled, and him and his family packed up everything they had. They went down to Egypt, up to Greece, to Turkey, until finally he settled in Israel in the city of Tzfat, where he remained till he passed away at the age of 87. When Rabbi Yosef Karo came to Tzfat, the chief rabbi was a man by the name of Rabbi Yaakov Berav. And his dream, his vision was to renew the smicha, the idea of rabbinic ordination. The idea that each rabbi receiving his rabbinic ordination is connecting to a link that connects him back to his rabbi, who received his rabbinic ordination from his rabbi, all the way back to that moment that Moshe Rabbeinu, stood on Mount Sinai and received the Torah from God. They gathered all the rabbis of Tzfat and they decided who would be these couple of rabbis who would receive smicha, who would receive ordination. One of them was a young man by the name of Yosef Karo. Maran, that according to some, Maran stands for Matayim Rabbanim Nismach, that he received ordination from more than 200 rabbis who agreed. He became the chief rabbi of Tzfat after Rabbi Yaakov Berav passed away. He was the head of the court system. This was his synagogue, and this is building that we're in now is where he lived. He sat and wrote most of his life. He spent 20 years of his life working on his life's work, a book called the Beit Yosef. The Beit Yosef brings all the different opinions in halacha of what you need to do from the minute you wake up until you go to sleep, things having to do with the circle of life and with the different holidays. And when he wrote this book and published it, people said, this is really a wonderful book. But instead of giving me all the different opinions, can you just tell me what you think the right opinion is? So Rabbi Yosef Karo got back to work. Rabbi Yosef Karo, after years of intensive work, put out his second, more popular book called the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch, literally meaning a set table, is filled with his halachic opinions on all of the subjects that he wrote before. Now this book spread like fire. And meanwhile, in Krakow in Poland, a young man by the name of Moshe Isserlich, the Ramah, was writing his own book. But when people came in and showed him the Shulchan Aruch, when he opened it up and saw what was written there, he said, a book greater than mine has been written. You can put my book away. I don't need to write my book anymore. And his student says, but Rabbi Yosef Karo writes the Sephardi understanding. Your understanding is the Ashkenazi one. We need your opinions too. He thought for a while and he said, you know what? I'm willing to write it, but on one condition, that if you open the book that we publish, I want my work to be published with his. And I want his work to be written in big letters. And when I disagree with him, mine will be written in small letters beneath him. That is why today we have one book called the Shulchan Aruch, which both the Sephardi and Ashkenazim agree upon, because we have our great sage and their great sage, and we have one book written together with humility, with love. Rabbi Yosef Karo is called HaMechaber, not just because he's the one who wrote this book, but because Mechaber means he who brings different people together. He brought together the Ashkenazim and the Sfaradim, different thoughts from the East and the West, all into one book. And that Rabbi Yosef Karo was able to do in the most beautiful and eloquent way.